All right, what's up, SquidGrow family? I think Sam will be joining us momentarily. I know he just said start it, but he probably got sidetracked for a moment, but we'll get him up here. And as always, anybody that wants to come up and talk on the SquidGrow stage, you're more than welcome to. In fact, it makes the spaces better for those that are going to listen to this recording later. With that said, we've had a pretty solid amount of hype and price action coming back into our chart in form of increased volume. We've gone back from around the middle 9 million market cap. We're sitting just under 12 right now on both chains. It's nice to see that starting to trend in the right direction. A healthier chart is forming, it seems. As long as Bitcoin doesn't pull the rug out of us at any point, I think it's safe to say that we are looking at some nice upside here with all the different things that Shibtoshi and Dub have scheduled for us. I'm excited to unveil them. The time is getting very close. You already saw Borovic become unveiled, of course, as an ambassador. And of course, a little carrot that was dangled yesterday, which is the theme of this specific spaces in particular, was the fact that we've gone from 4 to 5 centralized exchanges lined up for this next few weeks. And of course, it's all leading into next crypto gem, which is not far away now. We're well inside of a month when that airs to the world internationally as the first ever cryptocurrency TV show, where SquidGrow will be sponsoring that, and all in those episodes burnt in with commercials and our logo for all the people to see that watch that. Very big deal. So going into that, it's important for us to have momentum. The things that Shibtoshi and RDub are doing right now are amazing. In fact, if you're in RDub's premium channel, you would know that he is in a group chat with Shibtoshi right now talking about something for SquidGrow. They're staying busy, guys. They're not stopping. Again, like we always say, Shibtoshi live, eats, and breathes SquidGrow. He really does. He embodies that of what a CEO should be, and it's pretty incredible the things that they've been lining up. In the past, we would slow drip things, but we've been bottlenecking them intentionally so that we can drop them in unison, and that time is getting very close. We're teasing it now, but it is really close. With that said, what's up, Sam? How you doing, man?
Hey, SquidGrow family. Hey, Dane. Just loving what's happening right now in the market. Bitcoin, SquidGrow. Just today I dropped into the main chat and it was crazy in there. And earlier today I was speaking to my brother who's also in the main chat. And he's like, I am in so many different crypto groups, and most of them are pretty much dead or maybe have like a maximum of 100 messages a day. And my brother is not super active like me or us. And you open like the chat in 2 days, and he's like, there were 15,000 unread messages in 2 days. I'm like, that is Squid Grow community. And you will not find those low quality messages in the chat just saying, oh, pump it, buy, or, just spamming the absolute ridiculous shit in there. All these messages in the main chat are good quality, good thoughts. It's buzzing in there, and I'm certainly buzzing myself. So, feeling super happy, super excited for what's to come. And like you said, it's all lining up to the next Crypto Gem show. We've got another exchange added to the lineup. Super exciting period. And fingers crossed, Bitcoin doesn't rug on us. But yeah, super happy, super excited.
100%. When you get a minute, Sam, check your DM too. I just shot you something. But yeah, so today the kind of the theme of this voice chat, I thought it was kind of funny name, sex education, is to kind of go over some key differences in terms and just overall a view of what centralized exchanges do for a project. What are they? Why are they important? It sounds like generic stuff, but it's not. Going to deep dive into that a little bit more today so that some people here that are just here because they saw that we're listing on 5 exchanges can understand the thought process going into these listings, why we're doing them, and how it's going to affect us. And I think that just by listening to this podcast, even if you feel like you have a handle on some of these things, you might learn something or two. Because this is more of a podcast with Sam and I going back and forth here than it is a hangout, which we'll turn into at any point as soon as I finish my sex rant. So today I am the sex teacher, and Sam's going to have some questions for me. It's for those that are unaware. Before I found SquidGrow, I was an exchange listing agent, and that's how I got involved with many projects. I listed probably well over 100 exchanges for projects, big ones. Not going to name the projects right now because it doesn't matter, but I have a lot of experience dealing with the exchanges themselves, what goes into that process, how it affects the chart, both short term and long term, the psychological aspect of it, when it's good to list exchange, all those things kind of you learn that by experiencing it. And I think I can speak pretty confidently with these things. So Sam has some questions for me. And so we'll just go back and forth. And Sam, you feel free to interrupt me at any point, add to some of these things, because I just kind of want to have a conversation about it. It doesn't have to be formal, but I think it's important because I want to make sure our community at large, especially some of those listening to the recording later on, has a firm understanding of what we're doing with this stuff.
Just before we begin, I'd like to point out this great initiative, taken place by Dane and the team at SquidGrow, because we have discussed this before in our VCs and spaces, how we are going to have much more educational content coming. Of course, we have all these Medium articles that Dane smashes all the time, and we have the internet as well. But this is a more personal, direct approach by the team for the community to educate us all. And I'm sure personally myself will also be learning a new thing today from Dane, because he's been an industry guy for a very long time. So without further ado, I think we are good to go, Dane.
Sounds good, man. And yeah, maybe I will say this too, because I know some of you guys are here just to maybe hear a bomb or announcement. And we saw that one that we just posted on our Twitter about 20 hours ago with the 5 centralized exchanges versus 4. And if you remember Shibtoshi himself in the chat the other day saying, we've got 4 lined up right now, but we're not done. We're talking to others, plural, not just other with singular. For all we know, we might have 6, 7 coming. I don't know, but I know that Shibtoshi's busy, and we're really making a push here. And centralized exchanges topic of today is a big focus of that. But with that said, there's also a very significant partnership. There's a few surprises that have nothing to do with partnerships or exchanges in there. And then, of course, there's that TV show that I just mentioned, which is a massive thing. And anything else Shibtoshi tries to bring out that I don't even know about myself. There's a lot of things we have coming just in this next month. It's very exciting. And then that's not even touching on our utility stuff, the previews for Incubate, boosting that up more, getting that out, the first NFT series, revealing more of Mike Miller's things. There's so many things from Incubate alone. And then, of course, SGX, the mystery utility. So we're not even touching on the utility stuff really right now. We're just focused on a little bit more marketing for this month, which I think is very exciting. So without further ado, Sam, there's a couple things Sam and I talked about before, so I'm kind of winging it here. So if there's something you don't agree with what I say, feel free to come up and challenge me on that, or ask any questions you may have as we kind of go over these topics. And again, anyone is welcome to come up and talk with us as we dive into this stuff.
All right, let's begin. And I think the most appropriate first question to begin this would be, to understand the difference between, a decentralized exchange and a central exchange. As most users now turn to DeFi, I think it is important that we learn the difference and the significance of both different sides of crypto. So Dane, please explain to us what is a decentralized exchange and what is a centralized exchange, and what are some key differences between them.
Sure, man. So DEXs, as most people know them in DeFi, are going to be Uniswap, PancakeSwap, KuCoin, right? Places like that. There's a couple smaller ones too people use that, but those are your main engines, Uniswap and PancakeSwap for both ETH and BNB respectively. And when I say engine, that DEX is basically just executing the functions of the smart contract for the token that you're buying, which is on the blockchain. So the DEX is the engine that powers that. The liquidity pool then is distributed, whether you're buying or selling, to the holder, and it will do things that the creator of the project tells it to do with taxes, etc. So DEXs power that. And the great thing about DEXs, as we all know, and we're very well aware of this at SquidGrow more than most projects, is that you get to own your keys, right? Your keys are yours. And that's a beautiful thing. because that means you have all the control and power over your actual tokens. That does come with a risk, though. As we all know, in DeFi, there are booby traps around every corner. There's people trying to DM you. There's links that are phishing links. There's people that are sending you dust tokens. There's hacks across different utilities almost every day. So if you've connected your wallet to something that's compromised, you may be at risk. So you do have to tread very, very carefully when you're connecting your wallet to certain things, especially if it's the wallet that you could keep all your tokens on. There are many ways to prevent getting hacked, but we won't get into that right now. But that is a risk of DeFi. Comes with the territory. If you want to own your stuff, you need to know how to protect it because you are your own bank. Now, centralized exchanges, if you've been around the space for a while, at one point, that's really all there was. If you wanted to interact with the blockchain directly, it was very difficult. It was very tedious and ugly. There was no DEXs. There was not really any good wallets like Trust Wallet. So you pretty much had to go through centralized exchanges at first because they would do all that hard work for you, make it user-friendly. And those have evolved over time. Some have gone, some have come up more like Binance and Coinbase. But when you go on an exchange, you are basically sending your tokens to that exchange. You don't have the private key, meaning the access point to your wallet. So that's the drawback to a centralized exchange. The upside to a centralized exchange, and there are many, we'll get into those more, but that's kind of what it is. You've got a third party that's controlling all the tokens on there. And the main difference is how they function as well. With the DEX, you have the liquidity pool, the engine distributing tokens or BNB, Ethereum, if someone sells to the holder's wallet. But if you are on a centralized exchange, the process works entirely differently. You have an order book. You have the order depth. You have all these different things, market makers, different market sections, futures, perpetual, spot, that maybe you don't have access to in the DEX world yet. Maybe you will one day, but the DEX world, in comparison to the centralized exchange world, is much more black and white and bare bones, just because it's you simply interacting with the blockchain. And additionally, every time you interact with the blockchain, especially in Ethereum, there's a fee to pay in gas, right? And so one of the advantages of centralized exchanges, there are fees, but typically compared to peak Ethereum gas fees, those fees are going to be much cheaper. So a lot of new traders, when they come into crypto and the next bull run, if Ethereum's gas prices are $200 to do anything, none of those casuals are going to be buying it on chain. They're going to be looking at the quickest, easiest exchange that allows them to sign up and go buy your token. So with that said, you can see how there are kind of seasons to centralized exchanges. Sometimes all the centralized exchanges are doing well. Other times only the big dogs are. And I think for the most part, the big exchanges right now have the majority of the volume. Bybit, Binance, KuCoin, and Coinbase are the big ones. You've also got Kraken and Crypto.com close behind. But for the most part, that's probably 99% of your liquidity right there in all of crypto at these big exchanges. So pretty incredible how much money is on these exchanges. And getting your project to those exchanges and timing it is very important. But we'll get into that more.
That was a very good explanation. That helps us understand some major differences between, DEX and SEX. And also, Dane, would you like to touch a little more on the anonymity aspect of, between the central exchanges and decentralized exchanges?
That's another big one. So private wallets, right? They're called private wallets for a reason. On the decentralized world, you can retain your anonymity. I can never say that word, anonymity. So that's a beautiful thing. I'm a big fan of that. I don't want centralized exchange looking after me and breathing down my neck or accidentally seizing my tokens for whatever reason, because I've heard horror stories of that. So for me, I tend to go towards DeFi. I think we all do. That's where we come from. But the centralized exchanges, you have to KYC with most. So that's the reality of the world that we live in right now, is that most governments, the regulatory bodies of these governments, are pressuring these exchanges to make the user, when they sign up, go through an extensive KYC process, which basically means you have to give them your driver's license or your passport, your address, your phone number, your email, a picture of you holding a picture of your ID. You're giving them all the stuff. And there's a bit of risk with that as well. A lot of people don't want to have themselves doxed to a third party that they don't know. So that can be an unattractive thing about exchanges. But to play ball on these exchanges. It's just the way of the world right now. There are ways around that. Maybe we could dive into that after, but for the most part, most exchanges will require you to KYC, with the exception of some. I believe BitTrue, MEXC, and a few others still allow you to go on there without KYCing. But there are limitations in place for some of these non-KYC exchanges if you do not KYC. So you have to be careful, because sometimes they'll actually entrap you. So it's always worth it to, if you're going to go play on a centralized exchange, to test it out first with just a small amount of funds before you transfer anything major to there or buy anything major on there.
Yep. And like you said, also sometimes, like Dane just mentioned, they entrap you, and it's not only about certain identity documentations and those kind of problems, but also they really start holding your funds, and they limit your access to withdrawals, and they'll never really stop you from depositing money, but when it comes to withdrawals without KYC, they really place such a hard limit that it almost becomes impossible for a human to withdraw his or her own money without losing her or his head. But
Oh, yeah.
moving forwards,
real quickly before you ask me the next thing, so there is a plus side to that too. I have seen a lot of hackers and scammers get caught by exchanges, and those of you may not know this, but let's use the example of Binance and Kraken, right? So I know a story personally of someone that got caught. So he tried to hack someone over the phone, and he basically just used the phishing method to get information out there, made them sign into a fake website, all these things. And as they're about to enter in their code and their access point to the site, they didn't do it. Long story short, he had to upload his wallet address on there. And this exchange got a hold of that wallet address, and they traced it back via the blockchain to a Binance wallet. And then from there, because it wasn't KYC'd, this wallet that he was given, it was actually KYC'd on his Binance wallet. So then Binance got his information. Not sure what they did with it, but they work together like that. So if you are doing something illegal and you bring your money onto something to cash out, which you pretty much have to in some way to off ramp these days. So if you do that, and you're a hacker, you might get caught. And I know exchanges have caught and shut down a ton of people that have done that. So that's probably one of the bright sides of it, is that there's been major hacks, like for instance with Curve. I'm not sure exactly how it played out, but I believe the hacker had to give some of the funds back, or most of the funds back, because the exchanges themselves, as well as the blockchain themselves, actually froze up the wallets where the hacker had his funds and basically locked them in. So DeFi, its truest nature, it could still be controlled to some degree by Binance and by these exchanges when you're trying to cash out. So to be truly DeFi and truly in privacy realm, it's difficult. You have to know what you're doing. So there is some bright side to that, because I do think the exchanges working together to get rid of some of those bad actors is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yes, for sure. And I think when we conclude this podcast, we'll definitely go over some points that really need to be considered once again by users, because although both platforms will have their benefits and disadvantages, there are reasons people still use them. Which brings me to my next question. Spot and futures trading. And we know 95 or maybe 99% of trading, spot and futures both, happen on centralized exchanges. And there must be a reason for that. But also, we would like to understand the differences between spot and future trading. Now we see it is, coming to the DeFi side as well. We have some platforms running, SGX, our own platform coming out for trading. So I'd love to know more about, spot and futures trading.
Cool, man. So I'll keep it simple without diving into either world too much. So spot is the same thing that you're doing at the DeFi level, basically, where you swap your tokens out immediately. It just happens at the CeFi level, centralized finance level. And when it happens there, you're utilizing the order books, the market makers, other people who have already put a sell order up. Perhaps you're buying one of their orders for sales. It's kind of swapping with another person. It's almost like PvP. You're switching back and forth tokens on these exchanges, or the market makers are helping you do that. So it's much different where there's liquidity being distributed every time on chain. Spot on DeFi and spot on CeFi are two different things. But basically it just means you're trading your tokens for Tether, or you're trading a Tether for tokens, right? And on CeFi. And in DeFi, you're either trading your ETH or BNB for tokens, or you're trading your tokens for ETH and BNB. So that's kind of spot. Most people are familiar with that. Futures, perpetuals, we won't get into the difference of those because it gets pretty technical, but they're basically the same thing for the most part, is as far as what most people need to know. So they're mostly the same thing. And when it comes to futures markets, futures, if you want to think of it in simplistic terms without getting into the heavy details of it, like the margin and the take profit and the stop loss and all these things and how to protect yourself, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but I will say, let's say you do a futures trade for Bitcoin and I buy it right now and I do it with 5x leverage. That means I've got a 5x multiplier on my buy. So if Bitcoin's at 29,550, like it is right now at this moment, and I put a 5x leverage on it, and it goes up 5%, let's just say it rockets up 5% to 32K or 31K, whatever that is, then instead of getting a 5% gain, like I would if I bought Bitcoin spot and actually just bought it outright, I would get a 25% gain because my 5x multiplier would take that 5% gain on the spot and times it by 5. So that's a simple way to think about it. And if you were to lose money, right, if it was Bitcoin was to go back and it went down 5%, then that means that would be 25% down. And if you lose 100%, right, if you're down 100%, that means you lost all your money. That's what called getting liquidated is. So no one wants to get liquidated. There's ways to prevent that from happening in futures, but it's very difficult, and it's a tool to traders to make faster gains. It's what people who day trade and scalp trade use, because you can take smaller moves and maximize them. So, a lot of guys, I'll use Satoshi as an example, that are veterans of the game and have a good amount of capital. They play with higher leverage, which is not recommended to a new trader. So these guys that have been in the game a long time and are risking a lot of money and have the margin to back it up, they might be doing 75, 50Xs on a regular basis. And so if you got a 5% gain with a 50X, just on that little move, you'd have 250% gains. You'd make a 2.5X. So it can be pretty insane. And just as fast as you can make money with futures, you can lose it. So it's not recommended to anyone, really. And if anybody does foray into that world, I highly recommend checking out RDub's public channel, as well as starting extremely small, meaning like use a 2 or 3x leverage. Learn what you're doing before you go up to 5, 10x plus, or maybe never go higher than that. But that's kind of your difference there. And then with that said, Sam, to answer the last part of the question with SGX, up until this past year, pretty much, you haven't been able to do futures trading at the DeFi level. So we call them perpetualized decentralized exchanges, or perp dexes, and that's what SGX is. It takes the futures trading suite that you see on centralized exchanges, and it brings that to the DeFi level. So basically, you would be connecting your wallet to that dApp and Web3. You'd be controlling your keys, and you would be able to engage in futures trading like you would if you went on Bybit or Binance or KuCoin or MEXC. And that is a really cool thing because it's new. And because it's new and because people are starting to understand the benefit of owning your own keys, there's a very big demand for it. Because not only are futures markets and decentralized perpetual markets getting more popular, there's just not a lot of big players in that world yet. And there's a number of reasons for that, liquidity being one of them, but it's also just new. So there's kind of a void there to fill. And that's where SGX is going to come in, especially into this next bull run where people start doing futures trading more often, as they naturally will. SGX will be there to capitalize on that a bit, and it's going to be a very big deal. So we're excited about that. But that hopefully answers your question between spot and futures. There is a big difference there. And before you ever foray into the futures world, you should always learn how to spot trade effectively first and use technical analysis, or refer to someone who is.
Yep, totally. And just an experience of my own I would like to share is, I used to do some futures trading with stocks in the stock market. And while I did make some money, it was scary. And you would really have to commit to it. You will have to put in the time, be in front of the screen, watch the charts, know what you are doing. I think in crypto, spot trading is very much possible, especially in the early days of any project, just by a lot of sentiment analysis and just just observing what the overall market is doing, but mostly sentiment analysis and fundamental analysis, seeing how the team is, what the background is, how much experience the team brings, what can they add, what can they bring new to the table. Whereas futures, no, you cannot just rely on sentiment analysis anymore or just news coming out. You really need to know your technical stuff. And like Dane said, first step is to educate yourself on how it works. Second is practice with small amounts. Just get used to the platforms you're using, and then when you feel confident enough, that's when you start using higher leverage. But that is one game you gotta be really careful playing.
Oh,
Which
exactly. You can lose everything, right? Accidentally, if you're not careful, you can lose everything you have in your centralized exchange account or decentralized perp account. Whereas, when you buy something in DeFi, if I make a bad trade and exit, I can exit at any point. I still have the tokens that I bought that just might be valued less when I sell them. Whereas if I make a bad trade in futures and it drops a certain percentage, I could get liquidated in minutes, depending on how volatile the market is. And yes, you made a good point, Sam. Fundamental analysis is something you should always look at, especially at younger projects. You can't really apply technical analysis to younger startup projects because they're so volatile, unpredictable, and they're doing kind of like the basics still as far as their chart action. So there's not a lot of chart history, which means to apply technical analysis or chart analysis to that project because it's so new just doesn't work. You, as a rule of thumb, you need history for a project before you can actually do successful chart analysis on it. Otherwise, it's just guessing and you're using patterns in a way they're not meant to be used and indicators in a way they're not meant to be used that don't have any history. And that's why futures, it's so important to do that, because typically speaking, when you're trading futures, you're trading things like Bitcoin, ETH, or other major altcoins that are over $1 billion in market cap. And typically those types of projects have been around for several years or more. So the chart analysis works very well on futures and spot on the centralized exchanges, but it's very difficult to apply chart analysis and technical analysis to DeFi because a lot of times it's fundamentally driven when they move. You might have had something bad happen in the project where a big whale sold and it created panic, and then that just completely ruins the pattern that you were looking at. Or you might have an example being a project that lists 5 exchanges within a month, that says they're going to list 5 exchanges. So you could use that as a way to say, hey, I'm going to buy some of this because there's a good chance it might go up because I found about some news by paying attention to the social media. So I'm going to buy a bag before the chart starts screaming and FOMO happens. So you maybe see some of that right now this month as an example. So learning how to apply your knowledge to both worlds is important. And I've seen a lot of people that come into the space that are so gung-ho on technical analysis and chart analysis that they try to apply it to DeFi startups, things that are 10 million market cap or less for the most part, aren't going to work with that. So not only learning how to trade and learning how to use the different platforms, but also understanding when to pay attention to certain variables.
Well said, Dane. And I think that is one key point that everybody really needs to, remember. A lot of times we do hear people dropping into the chats and, getting too stuck on the chart and, with patterns for all these micro caps. Personally, I've seen it. It does not really work on these micro caps, and there are other ways to, analyze a project. But moving on to a follow up question really on trading. We all are traders in a way. We have made investments either on the DeFi side or the centralized exchanges. One key aspect that I think is super different in the form of functioning between these two ways of doing crypto is how the liquidity works on either side. Now we know when we invest in a project, whether it's on Binance chain or whether it's on Ethereum, we can go on websites like PooCoin and Dex tools and find out how much liquidity a project holds. Whereas one cannot simply just find that how much project's liquidity is on a certain centralized exchange, and also the way it works because central exchanges work with the order book style, whereas DeFi uses automated, matchmaking liquidity. So love to hear more and how liquidity works on either side.
Awesome, man. Yeah, so I think most of us here in the DeFi space have started to get fairly familiarized with what's going on with liquidity at the decentralized level. I think where most people are still confused is what's going on at the centralized level. So let's dive into that more, because with the decentralized level, as far as what is required for liquidity management and healthy liquidity and ratios and all that fun stuff, I could probably talk for an hour on that alone. But keeping it on point to sex education, let's dive into that more. So liquidity on an exchange, you start out and there's going to be a requirement that you have to put. I'll just give you an example of Bitmart since we're already on there. So Bitmart, when we first listed Bitmart, they had a requirement of 30K and 30K liquidity. So that meant you had to add 30K in tokens and 30K in Tether to create the pairing that you see on there. Now that liquidity is going to function very similarly to what you see at the DeFi level, where there's an engine like PancakeSwap or an engine like Uniswap distributing the liquidity based on the gas that gets told whenever someone buys or sells based on the tax, right? So that kind of works, the ebb and flows automatically at the DeFi level as it's meant to on blockchain. But at the CeFi level, there's something called the order book, the volume bot, and the market makers. And these things kind of work together. And if you want to go to any exchange of your choosing, you will be able to go on there and you'll be able to see an order book. It'll literally title itself order book right next to the chart. And on this order book, you'll see these crazy charts where there's like a red and a green side. And that's your order depth. Order depth is basically, if you see like steep walls of red, that means there's big sell orders. If you see steep walls of green, that means there's big buy orders. If you see that they're flat, that means there's very few buy orders or sell orders, and there's just not a lot of orders in general. So that's kind of what that picture is. But with the order book, you've got these really complex algorithms. This is the best way I would just summarize it. Really complex algorithms that these market makers and volume bots are working to do at all times to ensure that there is a healthy amount of orders on both sides. Basically meaning that if I was to make a buy order on a centralized exchange right now at Bitcoin 29,600, let's go, it's going up a little bit. If I was making a buy order right now and I bought $1 billion and I bought it on, let's say, Binance. Well, that $1 billion is going to fill and cover a ton of sell orders. And so what that means is if I put a market order of $1 billion, which would be stupid. So without getting too far ahead of myself, we'll just dive into market orders. So when I put a market order on an exchange, whether it's a buy or sell, it's going to look at the order book and it's going to fill my tokens and give me tokens based on the order book that is there already. So it's important for the market makers to make sure that there are adequate order books or orders, whether you're going for a sell or whether you're going for a buy. Otherwise, the slippage when someone does a huge buy, like $1 billion buy, is going to be insane, right? Now, that's a little bit of an extreme example with Bitcoin because that's probably what it would take to create a problem with Bitcoin. But when you come down to smaller altcoins, there's not a lot of people that are aping $1 billion. Something crazy there would be more like maybe 1,000 or 10K. So the market maker's job is to ensure that there are orders there so it doesn't create a lot of slippage. And typically they'll warn you if that's going to happen. But that's kind of like what that does, the market order. And then you have something called a limit order. And this is where those orders come from. So let's say I want to sell my Bitcoin tokens at 29,650. Well, right now I can go onto Binance. I can say I want to sell. I can specify the price. And I can specify how much I want to sell of my bag. And then anytime someone creates a market order, like I mentioned before, and their price comes close to that, my order may get filled, meaning they're going to take the tokens that I just sold, and I'm going to take the money that they just bought with. And it's going to automatically, based on that market maker and bot, change between our accounts. So it's kind of like the centralized exchanges have their own system of making sure funds are transferred between users, or funds are transferred between market makers if there aren't any users. And that's where it gets tricky, because most people just assume that every time they look at the order book, each order that they're seeing is an actual person. Now, if you're looking on something like KuCoin or Binance, that's actually the case. There probably is an actual person that put his Bitcoin tokens at 29,650 for sale, and you bought them when he did a market order. But in the case where you're going on, say, a smaller exchange and you're trading a smaller token, you might actually be getting those tokens from an individual or a user. You're probably getting those tokens for a market maker. And the way market makers work is another kind of hot topic, but that's kind of a general summary of the weird world of order books and how it works differently than what we're familiar with at the DeFi level, which is much more simple, to be honest.
Yeah, it definitely is one, I would say, complex concept to understand. Definitely something worth reading more about, and getting some more personal reading done on that part. Personally as well, I gotta do it myself, because I still do not understand it completely, but I will be making an effort for sure to understand it more as I grow, and in my journey of crypto. But you touched on market makers there, Dane, and we have been hearing from Shib, and from you as well in some of our previous spaces and VCs. How we have one of the best market makers in the industry, and so how important is it to have like effective market making? And if we don't have effective market making, how bad can it go for a project then?
So it's incredibly important. It's one of the most hidden, crucial things a project has to make sure they take care of as they grow. It can absolutely destroy a project if they don't take it seriously. I won't get into necessarily how it can destroy them, but I will say that it's like top three things the project has to decide. First off, market making can be very expensive. I'm not going to disclose the amount of money that Satoshi pays for us for market making from the party that we have, which is CLS, but it ain't cheap. And what they're doing is beyond my understanding, because I'm not an algorithm expert or a mathematical expert when it comes to coding and the actual formulas they're using for these bots and how to run them. But they are using essentially bots to fill these order books based on a chart that is being dictated largely by the decentralized area where most projects have the bulk of their liquidity. So we're a perfect example. We've got probably 95% of our liquidity, roughly, if I had to guess, between Uniswap and PancakeSwap. The rest is on the exchanges. But when those things move, when our liquidity in those areas in DeFi move, the exchanges will follow. Now, how do they follow? Right? Well, that's where the market makers come in. And that's where they have to be on their game. Because if your prices aren't matching and you've got this exchange over here that has your price like 40% less than this one over here that has your price at 40% more, it's like it gets really weird. And it also is a challenge to keep all those prices together. So effective market making will basically do that for you. And it's an incredibly difficult job. And it's also a job that you have to make sure that you trust the party that you're using, because there's a lot of sensitive things they're dealing with, like your tokens or your tether. So with market making, they'll charge you a monthly fee if you're with a company, or maybe a bi-monthly, whatnot. So there's a cost with it. And also you have to fill the market making accounts with tokens and with tether over time. Just because you put initial liquidity seeding on there, for instance, the example I gave with Bitmart, we had 30K of tokens and 30K of tether. Well, let's say we had a massive sell-off after we did that. Now that would mean all the tether's gone. So you would then have to be contacted by your market maker, hopefully right away, and informed that you need to add more tether on that exchange. So you've got to make that transaction happen quick. Market maker's got to put it into the account. They got to fill up the order books so that if someone tries to sell on that exchange again, it can actually happen. Because there have been times in the past I've seen with projects where they have no liquidity. Maybe they're out of tokens, or maybe they're out of tether on the exchange. And if you try to go buy the token on that exchange or sell the token on that exchange, there's no liquidity. So you plain and simply, you can't. It would be like trying to interact with a chart at DeFi that has no liquidity. So they're kind of similar in that element, that both CeFi and DeFi need liquidity, but it's entirely different how it works, because instead of the blockchain managing it for you, the exchange itself is not managing your liquidity. That would be a massive risk to any project to have an exchange managing things, because they could manipulate it. So you have a third-party verified market maker that is managing your order book and executing the liquidity functions at the centralized level. And this is crucial to making sure not only that the project's prices are close together as you pump or sell off, but also that people can buy and sell your token on these exchanges. So most people don't think about market making. They just think, oh, hey, I'm going to list on this exchange. And that is a grave mistake I found. Because one of the first things new startup projects want to do is go list on all these exchanges without thinking about the monthly cost of a market maker, and a damn good market maker at that if you want to have good price action. So most projects these days, a lot of them are opting not to go on exchanges simply because maybe they can't afford the market making. And so that's an understandable move, but also perhaps a bearish one depending on who you ask. So, we are in the moment where we're trying to increase our exchange exposure. And in the process, we're going to be asking more of our market makers as we tee them up with each of these exchanges that we add and set them up to do a good job, hopefully.
Super crucial, like Dane just said. A lot of us do not really know how many things the team deals with behind the scenes, and there are certain things that need to be taken care of and kept a close eye on every single day, every single hour, almost every single minute as well, because it's very important that the price stays leveled and even on all platforms. I'm sure all of us have heard of arbitrage before. Arbitrage can kill a project super quickly, and there is no way to recover from that once that happens, especially when there is a connection between the DeFi and the centralized world. Because a lot of times what happens is, first of all, we do not know who's playing the game on the central exchanges. They suck the DeFi investors dry, and basically rinse off the entire liquidity on the DeFi side. And we do not know where the funds actually went, because things on a central exchange are not on the blockchain to trace. And especially for that, like Dane said, we cannot rely on these central exchanges, although no matter how reputed they are, to be given them the responsibility of managing our project's funds. Because well, I'm not trying to give it a bad name to central exchanges, but what my point is, it is crucial that a team or any project has the best market maker, third-party market maker, so that total transparency is maintained, and it is for the safety of the project's funds and for its investors. So super important, and SquidGrow team has never ever been have ever taken this lightly. We have one of the best, I think the best market makers in the industry, and and so far we have seen it do a pretty decent job. But
Yeah.
also, sorry,
Real
go on.
quickly, let me stop you there, Sam. So before I forget, so you made a really good point about arbitrage. So that's another thing that market makers can handle effectively too if they're good. Now, some that have been here for a long time, they remember SquidGrow back in the beginning when we did list on Bitmart and when we did list on a few other exchanges like BKEX at the time. Yeah, Sam, by the way, if my mic turns to potato again, just stop me and I'll hop on my blue stacks. But yeah, so arbitrage is brutal. And I think when we first did go on exchanges, it was natural to have some arbitrage, because what that was some of our whales from DeFi were sending tokens to the exchange and then basically sending them from the exchange to a hot wallet, or to a private wallet, and then selling like that, essentially just trying to wash the tokens so that Satoshi didn't see them selling. And that happened a lot. So a lot of the arbitrage that we've had in the very beginning from Gate and from a few others was from people doing that. But a lot of that's calmed down now. People that wanted to get off DeFi and wash the tokens and stuff have done so, or they're gone. We've got a lot of badass holders here that are holding our floor. Additionally, you'll notice that the arbitrage that we actually do experience, although we do get some, and that's kind of a good thing, because you want your prices to match. Like, I want people to arbitrage between BSC and ETH personally, because I want to see those prices stay together. So arbitrage is how that happens. A lot of people will take advantage of that and make a quick buck. More power to them. You're doing the project a favor in a way. So with that said, you don't want excessive arbitrage. And if you're not communicating with your market makers on a regular basis to see what's happening, going back and forth, monitoring the blockchain to make sure nobody is finding a loophole to do so, right, you could really be harming your project. And that's part of the reason why we actually have a transfer tax, because it makes it much more difficult to send tokens around between exchanges and the blockchain when you have to pay an 8% tax each time you do that. So that is a kind of a tool we use to make sure arbitrage doesn't happen as much, but also we're constantly communicating with CLS, our market maker, to make sure that people aren't doing something off an exchange onto DeFi that would harm the project. So not only are they making sure you can buy, sell, and match prices on exchanges, they're also protecting you from excessive arbitrage that would hurt your project and stall your gains.
And we have all witnessed it before. And well, just to move on again without going into too much detail, arbitrage is good, but excessive, like Dane said, is bad for the health of a project. Um, but also, I think market making is also one of the factors responsible for volume. But not only that, we'll also go over organic volume and how important volume is for a project, and what can volume lead to, what can volume enable us to do, how it enables us to expand our project, and how it is good for a project, and what happens if the volume dries out. So I'd love to know more about how volume affects a project.
Yeah, so let's use the example of a pawn store, right? If a pawn shop, a pawn store has people coming in and out, if they're buying, selling, buying, selling, buying, selling, it's a good thing. That pawn shop is having a lot of action. It's on the map. It's busy. It looks good. If that pawn shop has the most amazing things in the world in it, but nobody's coming in there to sell things or to buy things from them, then they're not really making any profit. They're not making any money. They're not on the map. Nobody knows who they are. So they're probably going to end up closing down. And it's the same thing with volume, if you want to think of it that way. If a project has a good amount of volume, whether it's on CFI or DeFi, people look at that project as a serious contender to maybe throw some money in. If a project has low volume, not only do exchanges, the big ones, not like it, it's just not a good look for people when they come and find you on Uniswap and PancakeSwap and see that no one's bought or sold your token in a few days. It looks like nobody's there. Even if you have a high Telegram activity or Discord or social media, whatever, if no one's buying your project, and I've seen this happen to some of the best utility projects out there, if no one's buying it, it just gives off this really bad image and vibe. Like if I saw there was only one buy in 24 hours, I'd be like, I don't want to touch that. That's a low volume trend, low volatility. So it's typically seen as a very negative thing from technical traders that use chart analysis, and also volume for us. As we all know, our tax goes to liquidity. So anytime someone buys or sells, we're boosting our liquidity, which means when you, as an individual, decide to sell one day, you'll have more funds to actually profit from when you take your profit, because that liquidity pool will be thicker as we go up. So we like volume because as we go up, it boosts our liquidity, and as we go down, it strengthens our liquidity to prevent us from going down further. Now, the cool thing about volume that people don't talk about is exchanges really do look at it. So if you want to get listed on Binance, I'll just give you an example. They require about 15 to 50 million in volume. That's the spread I've seen over the last 2 years to even be looked at. If you have less than that, they'll be like, not interested. So they're looking at that stat. And what stat are they looking at? They're looking at the volume stat that's displayed on CoinMarketCap from a ranked project, because CoinMarketCap is a subset of Binance. So it's pretty important to have a good volume if you want big exchanges to even consider you. Even if you can pay their listing fee and have liquidity, check all the boxes as far as security, they will not give you the time of day if you do not have the volume. So one of the great and biggest benefits on stacking centralized exchanges, whether big or small, is that if you set up your market makers and you go onto these exchanges, you're going to have bigger volume, especially when things pick up again and people start buying and selling more on these exchanges. Bigger volume, if you get over 5 million daily volume, 10 million daily volume, people might even list you for free. In fact, about 6 months ago, we got listed for free by Hotbit and XT, which are unfortunately not the best exchanges, but that's just a good example of volume contributing to more listings. We can use the Pepe example. Pepe got listed on exchanges because they had retardedly high volume, and that was largely because of MEV bots and the team buying their floor, but still, the volume was there. So as a result, what happened? Lots of great exchanges listed them. So the same can be true in our situation. If we list 5, 6, 10 exchanges, whatever Chiptoshi has in store, regardless if they're your favorite exchange or not, they are going to boost our volume. And they're going to boost our volume a good amount too. So that is a very, very bullish thing, because not only will you notice that as an investor and other investors notice it, but the bigger exchanges, the tier 2s and tier 1s, they'll see it. They'll see that we have a constant daily volume that's much higher than what it is right now, because we're going to be adding at least 5 more exchanges. So to me, volume is key for getting to where you want to go on exchange land, and also looking better just in general on CMC and to new investors that may find you in the future.
Yeah, volume is definitely one of those things that all the central exchanges are hungry for. And we cannot deny the fact that most volume also comes from these central exchanges when, a token lists there, because it's one of the easiest ways to, get your hands on a token without learning too many technical aspects of, how to get into DeFi and set up your own wallets and stuff. And also, the fear of getting hacked or falling into one of those scammy traps. I just wanted to mention here one great example of volume here, which, really, I think, in my personal opinion, was a catalyst for meme coins in this space. Dogecoin. 2021, market is pumping. Bitcoin about to hit 69,000, its all-time high. And everybody's paying attention to, Bitcoin, Cardano, Ethereum, Litecoin, all these blue chips are pumping. They're reaching heights which they have never reached before. And then all of a sudden comes Dogecoin. And, I might be wrong to say, but for a fact, I'm sure we have all seen it from the bigger, entities and parties in this space, how they hated Dogecoin and the meme coin, the whole meme coin thing. How Dogecoin was, just made within a day, and it was a copy of Bitcoin, and it received some serious hate from Bitcoin maxis. But eventually, when Dogecoin started soaring high, and the volume it was seeing was billions of dollars a day when it was around its all-time high. And for an example, although I think Coinbase wasn't too keen on listing Dogecoin, the investors, as Coinbase has become a publicly traded company, the investors forced Coinbase to list Dogecoin so that it can, be part of the, Dogecoin's run, and from that added volume generate a lot of fees and revenue and profit for Coinbase as a business. So volume is key, and like Dane said, if you have the volume, most of these exchanges will even come to you for, to list you for free. So that is how important volume is. And when the bull run comes back, we are gonna see super high volume again in most cryptos, in SquidGrow and Bitcoin again, and it will be a very fun period. The chart's gonna move up, it's also gonna move down, but it's gonna be very fun.
Oh, well said, man. Who's this coming up here? We got Vitalik.eth. Let me get you up here real quick. We'll take a break. See, we got a question maybe from the audience.
Yes.
Oh, there he is. What's up, Vitalik? Big fan, man.
Me too.
For a long time. You guys are doing a great job.
Appreciate you, brother. You got any questions or anything for us, man? Or are you just up here to kick it?
That's all I really wanted to say. You guys should toss me down.
Oh, you're good, man. I think we'll keep you up here. You're kind of a flex to showcase that we got Vitalik up here with us. I think you might gain us a bigger audience, so we'll leave you up here. If you think of anything you want to say at any point, feel free to butt in. And anybody else, same goes for you. If you got any questions, just want to come up here and kick it with the crew, you're more than welcome to. We love it. But yeah, Sam, so volume's a big one, man. It really is. And the reality is, for projects to go on tier ones, you must have high volume. For the most part, from what I've seen, for things like OKX, for things like KuCoin, things like Coinbase, you pretty much need to be targeting that 5 million daily volume range. They're going to want to see a good amount of that on your centralized exchanges and a good amount of that on your DEXs, so they will look at both. They're going to be looking at things like your social media engagement. So right now, what we're doing, this is perfect. Our shill army out there, the SquidGrow army, what you guys are doing every day, hammering Twitter, hammering Reddit, engaging with things like lesser known, like our Instagram. That's going a long way because these entities that, the big ones at least, are going to be looking at all of it when they vet your project and decide if they're going to accept you to list. So volume is just one aspect. There's many, but it is a very, very important one because if you don't have enough volume, they won't even give you the time of day.
Yes, sir. And volume is what brings us to our next question, which is how volume determines what exchanges approach you, or what exchanges you can approach with you knowing what your volume is like. And just touching a base on how different exchanges are ranked differently, what are some key differences between the different tiers, and what are some benefits and disadvantages of being on different tiers of exchanges, and how it matters for a project to be very strategic on listing these different tiers at different timelines of its journey to the bigger growth.
Cool, man. So let's start with the tiers because that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, and I think it gets lost in translation because it's not necessarily set in stone that you're tier one forever. Just because I'll use the example when I got into crypto in 2016, the tier one exchanges then were completely different than what they are now. And who out there judged when it didn't exist as a tier one anymore, right? Like when was the exact moment that, let's say, something like what's an old exchange that just sort of like fell off the top of your head, Sam? Do you know any? There's been several.
That is true. There have been. I'm just really get one out.
Let's say Voyager. Right? Can you hear me, Sam?
Yep. Loud and clear.
I thought I was cutting out. My bad. Yeah, so let's say Voyager. That at one point you can make the argument that it was a tier one. Back in 2021, everybody was talking about Voyager before it got rugged. And now it's obviously tier zero. But tier ones, the way I would describe them is that if you want to really get a grasp on which ones there are, probably 90% plus of their volume, the lion's share of the volume that goes to that exchange, so the order books on that exchange, are going to be organic. So they're going to have a ton of real buyers and sellers on there on a daily basis engaging with the audience. And when you list on a true tier one, you're opening yourself up to in a demographic of buyers and sellers as well, and futures traders, and that won't even touch DeFi because they're comfortable in that tier one exchange. So not only does the tier one exchange have a lot of organic volume, true tier one exchanges will be trusted by the masses for the most part. They'll usually require KYC with the exception of KuCoin that didn't until recently. And you can even make the argument that KuCoin's not even a tier one, although I think it is. I think that your top tier one, just to list them, they're pretty obvious. You've got Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, and then from there, it becomes kind of debatable because we don't really know if their volume is truly organic anymore. But you could say Crypto.com just because the reputation that precedes it. You could say Gemini, you could say Robinhood for sure, because that is mostly organic. So I mean, there's maybe 8 if you really think about it. Bitfinex is one of them. It gets forgotten a lot. There's really about like 8 at most, in my opinion. Some of them that used to be considered tier one aren't anymore for a number of reasons. Huobi was one of them because of the whole Justin Sun fiasco as of recent as well. There's been other ones that have had controversy as well that have brought them down that totem pole. But tier ones are, they're the sought after things, and to get on them, extremely difficult. Super high volume. You got to be the talk of the space. You got to be something groundbreaking. Whatever it is, they're not going to list you just because you can pay. They're going to decide to list you. They're not going to DM you. They're not going to reach out to you to see if you want to list. You're going to have to contact them. They're going to vet you. And if you're lucky, if you meet all the parameters and you do all the things they say and you have good conversations and meet their criteria, then you can list on a tier one. So there's only really a handful of those out there. And that brings us to tier twos. Tier twos are special because they still are highly regarded. They still have a decent amount of volume. I would say you could use the variable somewhere between 30 to 50% of the volume on the exchange is organic, at least in some shape or form. There's actually real users on there that go to this exchange on a daily basis. They feel somewhat comfortable using the exchange. Maybe they don't keep a ton of funds on there like they would with tier one, but they keep some funds on there because they feel good about it. That's your tier two. And again, there's a lot less tier twos than there are tier threes, but there's a good number of these. I think a good example of a tier two would be MEXC, right? We're listed on MEXC. Another one you could say, the very maybe bottom tier of a tier two would be Bitmart. These two exchanges, they definitely have some organic volume, and they're pretty regarded to be, for the most part, safe. You know, you're not going to get hacked on these exchanges. They've stood the test of time. They're not brand new, and you know you feel okay trading. And then that leads us to the tier three, which there's nothing wrong with tier threes. It's just that they may be newer, or maybe they don't have that much actual volume on there. And with these exchanges, market making is key, right? Market making is really, really key on these, because the reality is there's probably, I don't know how many that are on CMC right now, but there's at least 100 tier threes that most people have heard of, or maybe been contacted by in your DMs to list on, that are out there. And these exchanges can actually be really good if people think of them as a hidden gem or whatnot, or it does a good marketing campaign to help you promote your project, or it helps you promote your volume. But for the most part, tier threes are going to have extremely low organic volume, almost none sometimes, and the majority of the volume are going to be bots and market maker bots in particular. And a perfect example of this would be Coin Tiger, right? It's actually enjoyed them lately. It's hard to happen to them. In fact, we're having trouble accessing our funds with them right now. Good news is it's very little. But those are your kind of your tier threes. And Coin Tiger would be towards the bottom of that. Obviously, there's more reputable tier threes out there. And yeah, that's your kind of breakdown of the different exchanges. And obviously, people are going to have different opinions on what is what. But that sort of gives you some criteria to judge your exchanges on.
We had little bit of disturbance in Dane's mic, but I was able to hear that though. I hope it will be okay for the others too.
For a while there, or is it still bad?
It's still bad.
All right, hold on. Just take it over real quick. I'm going to switch over to my Dane account.
Alrighty. Well, Dane just really went through in very good detail on how different tiers of exchanges work and what really makes an exchange get this tier ranking, which he also just described to us how it's not really there's no a proper set of rules which categorizes any exchange into a tier, but mostly how it's really dependent on the volume it can generate in organic or unorganic way. But of course, I would also add to that is public perception. Now, this doesn't have to do anything with tiers, but there is, certain perception towards certain exchanges by the masses. Obviously, Coinbase, Binance, those names everybody knows. And if a project is listing on one of those exchanges, certainly they are tier one in terms of their popularity. So that is one another factor that can affect a project's growth, and so that is also one thing that contributes to central exchange and how it's ranked as a tier. We'll try with Dane on his other account if he's back, and then we have some
60 seconds.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, some key points touched about central differences between central exchanges and decentralized exchanges, how trading works on different platforms, what liquidity is and how it differs in its form and functionality on both different platforms. And then, of course, we touched on market making, which I think is one key aspect of any crypto project, especially the ones that launch straight up on on the DeFi side, and it starts its journey to expand on these central exchanges, and how key market making is. If you don't have good market makers, your project can die instantly, and that has happened to projects before that went on to list on some great exchanges, but because they did not put certain measures in place, they saw immediate catastrophe. We went through volume, what volume means, what volume generates for a project, what volume means to central exchanges in terms of their fees, their revenue, and also on the DeFi side, how volume, affects a project's, especially projects with tax. SquidGrow has been lucky. SquidGrow community has been lucky to have a founder like Shibtoshi, who's, funded all the expenses out of his pocket. And, all the taxes have always gone back to the LP for all of us investors and our future bags. But there are projects in DeFi, which I don't think is a wrong thing to do. Of course, there are projects where the devs and founders take advantage of these taxes and, pocket a lot of money. But also there have been projects that have utilized this money that was generated from the, taxes to actually do something good for the project. And, volume contributes to these taxes, and these taxes contribute to funds for, the development of a project or marketing. So we touched on volume today. We touched on different tiers of exchanges. And
test, mic check.
Loud and clear.
All right, sweet. Yeah, man, you're right. We didn't touch on tax, but the beautiful thing about SquidGrow is something very unique about our tax is that all of it goes through liquidity. And that liquidity is so important. And in fact, it's so important that we'll probably do an entirely separate call or spaces on liquidity sometime later. But so I won't deep dive that too much. But yeah, hopefully you guys could hear me before my mic went potato on the tiers. It's certainly important to list on a variety of exchanges, but it's only a pipe dream to get on tier ones without volume. So there is a ladder that you must follow to actually accomplish the dream of getting on Binance and Coinbase and whatnot. It's not just about how much money you have. So keep that in mind and understand that although some exchanges that we list over time, not just these next 5, but over time in general, I'm just speaking generally here, some exchanges may not be what you were looking for. Maybe you're waiting on something like crypto.com, or something crazy just out of nowhere. Some exchanges might not be that, but they're still contributing in a positive way to the growth of the project for volume, for exposure. Also keep in mind that exchanges themselves are also marketing gurus. So exchanges blast out emails, they post PR, they go to conventions, and they also tap into different demographics that may really tie into that exchange. For instance, CoinSpot in Australia is like their main exchange. Tons of people use CoinSpot. If you were to list on CoinSpot, which is, I think, still considered a tier 2 by some people, which is silly because in my opinion it's a tier 1. But if you were to list on CoinSpot, you'd probably have a ton of Australians finding your project that would have never otherwise seen it. Or perhaps if you were to list on one of India's top exchanges like CoinDCX or WazirX, you would see a ton of Indians coming into your project that would never have otherwise seen it because your marketing didn't tap into that market demographic as well as those two exchanges were able to. So understand that each one of these exchanges itself kind of has its own area of expertise as far as the type of audience that it's going to attract. So the more of these entities you can get on, as long as you have effective market making to balance the prices and make sure things flow nicely and prevent arbitrage, as long as you can do that, then these exchanges will actually bring an increased exposure to your project. All these different demographics that might not have seen you may start coming in. I've seen certain exchanges that are popular in Estonia, some that are popular in Turkey, some in Nigeria, right? Some are all over the place. That's typically your tier 1 or maybe a tier 1 based in a certain country like Binance. But there are also exchanges that target things you may not know about. So that's something else that we keep in mind when we're picking exchanges. It's not just volume, it's also access. And that's one of the beautiful things about SEX is that you bring access to people that don't understand DeFi, that are not getting exposed to you. Maybe there's a language barrier that this exchange offers itself into other people that you don't. So they're able to penetrate into perhaps like a different market because of that. So there's a lot of benefit, I think, that comes to exchanges. And we sort of touched on the cons, the negative sides of exchanges. And I would say the most negative side of exchanges that people don't see is the management that goes on behind the scenes with the market maker. So there's a lot of cost associated with being on exchanges. It's not just something that you pay once and forget about. There's actually something called a maker-taker fee on many of these. For those that don't know what the maker taker fee is, that means the exchange takes a percentage of every single buy and sell order in that order book. So over the course of 1 month, if you had to keep a certain amount of volume with your market maker and there was a maker taker fee of like 0.04%, well, that might not sound like a lot, but within a few months, your liquidity that you put on there initially is going to be at zero, and you're going to have to add more. And if you can't add more to liquidity, well, then your exchange is going to have no volume on it, and it kind of defeats the purpose. And you can go see this. You don't have to look far. You can go on to CoinMarketCap right now. You can go on, let's use Gate.io as an example, and just click on Gate.io and then click on Markets, and then just start scrolling down and get to like the top 300 and then 400 and then 500. And you're going to see all these projects as you get down there more and more have zero volume. Why do they have zero volume? Well, it's because first off, Gate's not bringing organic buy pressure, obviously, if that's the case. And secondly, they probably have either folded and can't afford market making anymore, or they just can't afford market making. So as a result, they have no volume, no liquidity on that exchange, and nobody's buying or selling it. And it's kind of like a token graveyard in a way, almost like how you can find dust tokens in DeFi. If you look around and pat old telegrams, well, you can go onto the exchanges and find altcoins with no liquidity that are basically dust too. And if you can't afford market making, that's typically what does that. And people will stop paying for their market making first. So that's something to keep in mind. Like if you just want to go and list on all exchanges, it sounds super great, but you need to be able to afford the overhead with that. And most projects can't. So, most projects can't even afford one, for instance. Just to give you an idea, ballpark range of what it would cost for one market maker on a monthly basis. Typically speaking, you're looking at a cost of about, for just one, not package deal, you're looking at anywhere between $2 to $3K per month for one exchange to do market making every month. So that's a $2,000 to $3,000 expense for a small project every month just to go list on an exchange. And now some exchanges, I will say this, just a side note, they use automatic market makers, which are basically just bots, but those are very sketchy and subject to manipulation. So we try to avoid those ourselves and use our market maker CLS to make sure we know what's going on.
And one other thing about these exchanges and how and when a team decides to, list on new exchanges, another key reason for this is, Dane already touched on, providing a better access for users, perhaps in, different countries where they cannot access all these big exchanges. But also, as we have seen over the last couple years, banks and institutions have been, locking down on crypto users. They are trying as best as they can to, make it as hard as possible for, crypto users to like get into crypto and get out of crypto. And, having different exchanges also helps, the investors to, easily on ramp and off ramp, because a lot of times we see certain exchanges do not work with certain banks, and certain exchanges do not let you withdraw funds in certain banks, perhaps because of restrictions. So that is also another reason why a team decides carefully, while expanding and listing on new exchanges.
Yeah, you have to be selective. You have to understand what you're doing. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background. For instance, and for those that doubt Shibtoshi, you might like this. Each time Shibtoshi pulls the trigger on an exchange, he KYCs with them. Yes, that's right. He KYCs with them. They require that for the person making the project. You have to KYC your business and oftentimes your personal. So he's done that many times with certain exchanges. So he's taken a risk there for the behalf of this project, which I think is pretty incredible for someone like him to do. And I think that's worth pointing out that there's an element of trust that you can't just be like some degen developer that wants to rug your project and then go list it on a bunch of exchanges, because they're going to know who you are, right? So that's a interesting element of it too that I don't think is talked about, is that whole process of verification before you can even list your project. Then you go and set things up on your volume and market making account, and then from there you arrange a listing date and an announcement and a marketing plan of attack with that exchange. Maybe you do some airdrops, maybe you do some giveaways, maybe some trading competitions. All those things certain exchanges will do for you to help promote and boost your project and get PR out there. So there's a really cool marketing effect that comes with some of these exchanges too. Some are better than others, but you do get blasted out on their social media, which can help you as well.
I just lost my train of thought. I was just about to ask you another question, which was, oh yeah, sorry, I wanted to mention how Dane just said Shibtoshi has had to do KYC on certain exchanges, and he's mentioned this before, where it's not just another regular KYC that you or I would do. It's an institutional level KYC, which is, I'm sure, of very significance, and goes deep into Shibtoshi's details. So that's just another thing that the community needs to know, that although Shibtoshi is obviously not doxed to the community for reasons that we all understand, he's still KYC'd, and he's had no personal gain on hiding his identity. And once I was speaking to him, he did mention it about how he was ready to dox himself, but well, just before he did that, he was doxed as this billionaire. He never wanted to bring that identity to SquidGrow. He just really wanted to do something, but then, well, crypto investors are crypto investors. They found him, they found his wallets and stuff, and he made a decision to not dox, which I completely totally support. And I think that is in the best interest of him, his safety, his family, but also for us as investors of SquidGrow, his baby. So that was what I wanted to add. But after having this conversation about decentralized exchanges and centralized exchanges, I would like to ask Dane one more question, one last question, which I think I'll also like to ask community members after Dane touches on it, which is, what are your personal reasons to use a central exchange or a decentralized exchange at times? And what do you think are, because there are pros and cons to both of them. And, so we'd love to hear from Dane. And then obviously after that, we'd love to hear from some of your the community members as well, for why they would prefer one or the other, or if they use both, then what are the reasons that they choose at times these certain exchanges.
Sure, man. So I'll give you my personal answer first. So I use futures exchanges are specifically for that. So I'll go on Mexi, Bybit, KuCoin, and that's my kind of go-to for why I go on centralized exchanges. I also swap my tokens out. So like I'll switch my BNB for a different type of BNB perhaps on an exchange, or I'll swap my ETH for maybe TRX ETH. So I also change networks on exchanges. I kind of go to and from like that. But I don't really do spot trading on exchanges anymore unless I'm converting to Tether. So for the most part, exchanges for me lately are mostly just the on-ramp, off-ramp. I've gone fully into DeFi as much as I can, and I prefer it that way. But there are a ton of people that just stay on exchanges because they don't want to pay gas and deal with all that and the wallets. So they just feel comfortable having an exchange manage all that. And, if you're sticking onto the major exchanges, there's no real risk at that for the most part. Binance and Coinbase and whatnot, the chances of them actually going down and rugging you is very small. So a lot of people stick to that, and that's just fine. But, yeah, for me, that's kind of my personal answer. But I'd be curious to hear from some of our community as well.
So, well, that kind of concludes from the team the today's session about centralized exchanges and how centralized exchanges work. But yeah, we would now love to hear from the community members, their personal experience, and their thoughts on CeFi versus DeFi. So guys, just feel free to request to speak, and we'll bring you right up.
We got one up here. What's up, Pablo?
Yeah, hey bro. GM, everyone, GM. Hope you're all doing well. Yeah. So basically, in my opinion, I'm an African, and for decentralized exchanges, it's very difficult for some of them to probably get your fiat currency into the cryptocurrency. So for me, what I do is that probably Binance or other exchanges which are centralized, I probably change from my fiat currency to crypto, before I send it to other decentralized exchanges. I deal with airdrops and stars also. So sometimes I need to change from my fiat currency to cryptocurrency, which I do on centralized exchanges. But then I prefer using the decentralized exchanges compared to centralized exchanges. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Very nice, man. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, gas fees can be brutal in DeFi. If you're an ETH maxi, for instance, and you want to do everything at the DeFi level, that can get very costly, especially if you're interacting with bridges or any other utilities. So yeah, centralized exchanges makes that much more convenient.
Talking about even
You know,
trying to convert your cryptocurrencies from one to the other, it's quite expensive on decentralized exchanges. Even sometimes when I'm trying to probably swap tokens or something, it's quite difficult. So sometimes I need to wake up at dawn or midnight to do that transaction. But talking about centralized exchanges, I just basically do it anytime I want to do because I think they have fixed this one. Even Binance, sometimes converting into other coins is quite free. It's free. It's not expensive. Yeah.
yeah, very well said, man. I do the same thing personally. I swap between networks and other coins on exchanges with the spot markets there, and just put a limit order or whatnot, exactly what I want, and I'll get that. And you don't have to pay gas fees, which is a massive plus. So there's a lot of like conveniencies that comes with centralized exchanges, and there's a lot of people like that. I think it simplifies thing. It doesn't only make things cheaper, but it simplifies things for users that are coming into crypto and also smaller investors. It makes things cheaper. That's a big deal. So it's not just finding new investors in different demographics markets as well. It's also the fact that it's making it less scary. Like if you brought your grandma in right now and you showed her what you're doing with PancakeSwap on Trust Wallet or Uniswap and how sluggish that is and how you have to approve things, set the slippage, change the multi-hops, like she's going to be like, what the F was that? You know, but if you sent her, the Binance protocol and didn't go to the advanced trading desk, but you just show her the light trading desk on Binance, it's relatively easy, especially if you have some type of stock background. It actually echoes what you see in the stock exchanges as well. So people are familiar with that because it's not as new. Obviously, there's certain terms like market and limit orders and stuff that have been around in a while in the stock market, but they change a little bit with crypto. But still, it's more of a familiar interface, and I think a lot of people do like that. And I know tons of friends that I got into crypto in 2017 and 2021 bull runs that are still only on exchanges that have not come into DeFi. So there is a ton of money in CeFi still. And I think it's interesting to point out that I don't think there'll be any point in time in the next decade or more that crypto just decides to go fully centralized or fully decentralized. I think that two worlds will always exist. I think that there will always be people out there that want to own the keys and interact directly with the blockchain and control everything and stay out of the government's eyes. And I also think there will be people out there that want trad finance and they want Wall Street and banks and things like that to see what they're doing and to just have that convenience and that tax built into it. I think that those two worlds will exist and they will both grow side by side, regardless of how much one wants the other to go away. And go ahead, Pablo.
Yeah, I always been saying that too. Talking about these two worlds where we would have decentralized exchanges and centralized exchanges. And as I said earlier, also basically talking even about Africa, I'm talking about my country. The adoption is quite a little bit low, and we are trying to increase that. But for now, people need to learn. People need simple things, and I think still this world will be there, even though a lot of people are saying that decentralized is always the best. But I think there's going to be a world where we would have centralized and then decentralized coming together and then working together. And as you said, we have this fiat currency there. People need to change their money from the fiat currency to crypto. And I think for now at our place, it's only centralized exchanges now that people find it easier to change from their fiat currency to crypto. So I think you're all right, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, the fiat to crypto, whether it's an on ramp or an off ramp that you're doing, that's their big demand, right? Like there are ways to get money into crypto without a third party like that, but you're still going to have to use some type of third party, whether it's a Bitcoin ATM or someone acting as a Bitcoin ATM, or whether it's you buying tokens with a credit card on a wallet like Trust Wallet or MetaMask built into some third party app like Simplex or MoonPay. But again, those get expensive. The fees associated with bringing tokens from fiat or out of fiat that way is very difficult. And also off ramps in general, there are some, but off ramps in general, for the most part, most people are just using things like Binance and Coinbase and Crypto.com, et cetera, to take money out of crypto back into the real world. So there's a huge need to sort of bridge the gap between the banks and the blockchain. And the middleman between that have really dominated is the centralized exchange themselves. Now, a lot of the smaller exchanges like tier 3 exchanges don't actually act as off ramps, on ramps all the time. And that's probably an extra element you could add into the tier conversation that makes them more sought after. Because typically speaking, if an exchange offers an off ramp and an on ramp, they're a very serious exchange that's regulated and in bed with many countries' governments. But if they're just a crypto to crypto exchange, that means you're not going to be able to bring fiat onto that. So you're going to have to actually send crypto to that exchange to even do anything there. And typically that's what you're going to see with your tier 2s and tier 3s is that they don't have anything to do with, for instance, the US dollar or another fiat currency. So they just only interact in crypto. And by doing that, they're keeping a large amount of volume from their exchange that maybe would have otherwise boosted them, but they're also out of the eyes of the government. So, it's kind of like an ebb and flow there. They kind of pick your poison. So yeah, great point, Pablo, and I'm glad you brought that up. And just out of curiosity, what exchanges do you use there? Like, what are your go-to top 2 or 3?
All right. So basically, for me, I have one rule. If I'm using an exchange and I don't know the devs there or anyone there, I don't use the exchange. And because of talking about my top 2, I use Binance. That's my first one. Binance. I use Binance most, and I think OKX. Yep. So basically, those are my top 2. And talking about decentralized exchanges, of course, I use MetaMask and Xeron, and the third one is Flus. Yeah, I use Flus. I think I use Flus almost all the time because it's quite simple and then easy to use. I think the swapping fees also are quite lesser. So I just use MetaMask for my airdrop stuffs. Then I use Flus to swap some few tokens, and then Xeron to just check my transactions. So basically, those are my top wallets. Yeah, but apart from that, I use a lot of wallets. I use a lot of wallets like Phantom, Qcoin, and stuff. Just just for my airdrop stuffs. Yeah, I love airdrops. Yeah.
A very good answer, man. I think you have a really good grasp of what you're doing based on your answer. I'm very positive about Flus as well. In fact, we've done some things with them. I know their team personally very well. We go way back with when I was Blockchain Brothers. Craig and the guys there at Flus are awesome. I think they do a great job with their app, and I think that they're going to get a lot more exposure going into this next market as both an on-ramp and off-ramp and a swap service.
Yep. I actually had a talk with the current CEO, I think Lamin, and I was asking him about, I'm always interested in how Africa is going to elapse this crypto system. And I think he told me some few ideas about what they are coming to do, talking about Africa and how they're going to expand. And I think it's really, really in line with what we really need. So I think they are doing a great job. And talking about even the app and talking about their system and then their interface and everything, I think they are on track, and I'm hoping for great news from them too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll do well. I don't want to dive too much into Flus, but I will say this. They've pretty much gone full on utility mode over the last several months. They used to have a little token that kind of like they decentralized and gave to the community, and so that token is its own thing now. But Flues is just a straight utility. A lot of great guys behind it, like Lamine, like you said, and I think there's a need for what they're doing in DeFi, and a lot more people will come to find Flues as they push forward. There's a lot of competition in that realm, but there's a great team behind it who are very, very well connected that will likely bring that more into fruition as it advances. So yeah, I'm glad you shouted them out, man. Great company there, and the exchanges that you listed, OKX is one that we didn't talk about today. OKX is very good. I consider them tier 1 as well. They're right on the cutoff of what I would consider tier 1, just because the volume has dropped off a bit compared to what it used to be, but they're very solid. And I have a lot of experience with them in the past with some of my old altcoins I used to work with, like Veracity. I remember when we listed Veracity on OKX and I dealt with their team, and there was a huge, huge bullish response when Veracity went on there. So OKX is a great one. Of course, Binance is the king for the most part. So yeah, can't go wrong with those two. And I can say that one day we will be aiming to get SquidGrow on those exchanges. And that is part of the process of getting on smaller ones first sometimes, is that you're setting yourself up to do the bigger moves like that. And honestly, when it comes to doing the bigger moves like that, timing is so essential. It really is. You may not agree with me on waiting for some of those types of things. Maybe you'd want to see KuCoin or Binance or something right now, and I get it. You want to see price action right now. But I guarantee you that price action that you would get from this moment on going on something like OKX or Binance, it would be great. You might get a 50%, maybe even a 5x or something, but it would have a much higher chance of coming back down and sort of just flatlining after you get on there and then kind of just moving with Bitcoin from that point on than it would if you dropped a major bomb like Binance or OKX, say, in 6 months when the halving's about to occur and Bitcoin's at 40K or 50K and things are starting to move. If you dropped a bomb like that right then, you'd probably see a much more significant gain. You have to think that when people are coming in droves that have never found crypto and they see a top gainer that just listed on an exchange, that you're going to get a massive amount of FOMO exposure from listing at the right time when that's happening. So when it comes to tier 1s, we're not only trying to time them, we're also trying to get the volume that they require first. And so we're going to climb that ladder and we're going to get onto those exchanges. But I'm just saying that because I know a lot of you guys out there are like, oh my God, are they going to list Binance? And I'm just going to tell you right now, no, we're not listing Binance. But we will do things to get us on those exchanges. Shitoshi and myself, we have those connections. We talk to the listing agents on those exchanges. I've listed projects personally on those exchanges and worked with them to do so. So it's not like it's a pipe dream. We know who to talk to. We know who to contact. We know what they want, and we're going to give them those things, and then we'll eventually bring our platform on, or our project onto their platform.
Well said, Dane. And again, just to second to that, this team knows what it's doing. This team is, the OG. We are all OGs of SquidGrow. This team is OG of crypto, so they know what they're doing. They have the connections. They know exactly where to be at and what time to be there at. And like Dane said about Binance and Coinbase, we definitely aim to be there, and I'm pretty sure we will be there one day. But the team will make sure that it does that at the most opportune moment. And still we've got a lot of exciting things coming. And those are the goals, but we cannot forget the fact that we are listing on other exchanges, which are coming very, very soon. Super excited, super pumped. I have actually started getting a lot of DMs lately. They're like, "Oh man, I'm so pumped. What do you think? What's the price gonna be?" Well, I never really replied to the questions about the price, but yes, I am super excited too for those who have DM'd me, and I'm sure the main chat shows the same vibe. Yeah, super excited.
Oh, it's definitely a good time for us, man. We've been building up to a lot of these releases, and it's going to be fun to fire them off, boost that volume, get that chart moving the way we want to see it. It's been a long time coming. As I said earlier today in chat, I believe this is the most undervalued project in the space, and I mean that. What's up, Pablo?
Yeah, I'm seconding to what you guys are saying, and actually, I'm talking about this project. I've been following you guys on Discord. I've been following you guys and your activities and stuff, and I think this project is going far. I've been following you guys, and great job, guys, great job. and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of exciting factors and unique. And as you said, timing is always the right thing. And I'm talking about this crypto space. It's timing. So I'm quite patient. I'm relaxing, and then I'm excited to what you guys are going to bring on the plate. Shout out GG to all you guys. You are doing great job. Yeah.
Thank you, Pablo. We appreciate it, man. And anytime you want to come kick it with us in these chats, please feel free to, because I appreciated having you up here today and hearing your feedback.
Just noticed a point which was made while you were talking to Pablo about the differences between central exchanges and decentralized exchanges, and how we are responsible for our wallets and the security of it. We are our own banks, basically, on the DeFi side. I think, which actually makes wallet security a very interesting topic to cover, probably in the next spaces or perhaps next week. So maybe we set a routine or a timetable to doing this. But I think wallet security is another key aspect of crypto, and I think we can definitely cover that too for the community.
Yeah, we'll get into that on another one. I want to sort of keep this one on topic today and take any questions that we have now. But yeah, liquidity is one, wallet security is one. There's a lot of these different topics in the space that we can just go down a full-on rabbit hole with and like dive into each application and how to navigate it, maybe do some tutorials live. Yeah, we'll do those things. But today I think was important because I want our community to have a chance to listen to this, at least some of it. I know some of it's kind of boring and heavy, but hopefully it helps clear some things up that you may have been a little bit confused about. And I think that's important going into a phase where we're about to list 5 exchanges, because you need to know the benefits of why they are actually, like why we're doing it and why they're actually a good thing.
So on that note, I think once again, we would love to hear from the community about, anything related to what we spoke today in the spaces, central exchanges, DeFi, their personal experience, thoughts, critiques. Feel free to come up, guys. I see we are almost 45 people in here in the spaces right now, and I'm also seeing some regulars here. So don't be shy. Come up, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, please do. I'm watching right now for any requests. If not, if I don't see any in the next 30 seconds, I think we're going to go ahead and close it down. But yeah, it's been a good one, guys, and I think it's going to be even more good one tomorrow. What an exciting day we had in SquidGrow with all that buy pressure coming in on both chains over the last 24 hours. God, it was such a good feeling to see that. It's been a minute with this bear market and how brutal it's been to projects. So I think today was a very big moment just to show that we still have that power. And I think it's only just a little tiny sample of what this project can do for sure, but it was great to see. And there we got 79 up here. What's up, man?
Hey guys, how you doing? I figured I'd break the silence because no one was coming up. So yeah, it was a pretty informative presentation that you guys offered today. I really like this type of discussion because I personally learned a lot. Didn't know that you were a rep for the exchanges. I think you said you were. A lot of good points that were brought up and a lot of things that I learned. One of the good points that I like to hear was the potential marketing that we would get on some of these exchanges or could potentially get. You highlighted how a lot of the exchanges would potentially do some good marketing. And then another great point was that Mr. Shibtoshi himself has to do the KYC on all these exchanges. I mean, that to me just speaks for itself. I know how much he likes to protect his identity, and for all good reasons. And that just shows, like taking one for the team, really. So definitely appreciate that. And then I did try to get in earlier because you're trying to think of some exchanges that may have been tier 1, and you're like, some exchanges you're tier 1 one day and then maybe you're not tier 1 the next, and you don't even really think twice about it, which is true. So a couple of ones that I could think about that I used to use back in 2017 that I don't really use anymore was Bittrex and Poloniex. I think those were some of the first ones other than Coinbase that I started on. And but as far as you also asked, like, you curious about what the community uses and why. And I really, this year is the first year that I've participated in DeFi and downloaded DeFi wallets and learned how to swap on some of the the dexes. And so I have quite a few exchanges already set up for years, which is good because I have all my KYCs done, and whatever the limits are that you can reach by the process that you have to go through. But so some of the exchanges that I personally like it's Coinbase. I'm in the US, so I use Binance US. I have Gemini. I also use Uphold because I was participating in trying to purchase XRP during the 2 years, and they were the only exchange that continued to well, at least from the US, that you could on ramp and purchase XRP and trade it. And then later on, I learned that you can actually do that on Trust Wallet, which is pretty cool. So yeah, some of the some of the decentralized what am I talking about? DeFi wallets that I use is MetaMask, Trust, and the Coinbase wallet. Those are the three that I have right now. And but I really like I like the diversification of being able to hold my crypto and fiat on both exchanges and DeFi wallets. I really like that diversification, and I also, even before I started doing DeFi, I really I like the like on all the exchanges now, you can do swaps on there, and like I see Coinbase. I look forward to the ecosystem that they're building out in the future, because it's kind of like a all-in-one type of thing. They could see them being a bank, and they just have all these different types of services that they're rolling out, which is cool. So yeah, I mean, I just like the diversification. And excuse me, I know you're not supposed to hold money on the exchange, but I do hold some funds on exchanges, and also I like the ability to set up your spot sells and not have to like wake up in the middle of the night like the one gentleman said. But while I'm on the phone, I did want to give one shout out to, I see Mr. Gallier's listening. I wanted to give a shout out to him because, I know the guy puts in a lot of work with his memes, and I see him posting all the time on TikTok and Twitter. And, I know it's a work of passion, like we all do, but good work on that. Always creating those memes. So I just wanted to give a shout out to him for that. And yeah, that's really all I had to say, guys.
Thanks for sharing, man. Yeah, there's we all do it too, by the way. Keeping funds on exchanges, I think we all do that at least somewhat. I kept the majority of my funds on my futures wallet, for a long time, which didn't work out too best for me. Don't recommend that, but yeah, certainly we all do that, and I recommend that if you do bring your tokens onto an exchange, that it's one that you vetted personally and you know a lot about, and typically it's going to be one that has an off-ramp, on-ramp, like what Pablo said, not necessarily just a crypto-to-crypto exchange, which are a little bit shadier as far as who they actually are and where they're registered at. We just got a big spike in users, I noticed. What did that happen? 73? Is that right?
Yeah,
73
that's
here.
what I just saw, and I was like, holy, because this isn't just spaces about SquidGrow, but also, just general education about crypto, that can be easily applied by anyone who is a crypto user. So, well, if you are listening to us and you've just joined in, well, welcome to SquidGrow X Spaces. And because it's not really letting me see who the listeners are, it just says 32 other listeners.
That was weird. Yeah, I've never seen it jump so fast. But maybe a big influencer came in and some people followed him. That's the beautiful thing about spaces, though, is that you really never know who's going to brush shoulders with you. We've had some incredible people come through our spaces, and Twitter, or X now, has done a really good job in making sure you can search for certain topics now. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but you can actually go into the Spaces tab now and kind of browse through different spaces that are live. And the biggest spaces will obviously go to the top. So the more people get listening, the better, as far as us showing up in those libraries or indexer. And I think that's a really huge step, and it differentiates X from Telegram, because in Telegram you're already there, but in X there's a lot of people that are just seeing you for the first time. And yeah, if you're just tuning in now, we are closing it down fairly soon. I suggest, if you are interested in kind of learning more about centralized exchanges and the inner workings of them, that you kind of give this recording a listen once it finishes, because it is recorded. But we dove deep into it today as far as how that works at a kind of a heavier level, going into market making and the order books and how those work a bit more. And I think it's important for people to understand those things rather than just it being a strange mystery that you don't really understand. And as far as, sorry, Sam, as far as unveiling our centralized exchanges, well, we've got Next Crypto Gym on September 7th airing to the world. It'll be our first, it'll be the first crypto TV show ever to go on these streaming platforms. And we're going to be front and center there advertising SquidGrow. People that have never heard of crypto will probably be brushing shoulders with things on that show, and they'll see us over and over. So I'm imagining that we'll get some pretty solid new investors from that, and just the flair marketing of that, the virality of that is really big. But those 5 exchanges that we've teased last night are on their way. They're signed already, and I don't think we're going to have to wait long to see them start being released. And again, it might be more than 5. Shibtoshi alluded to the fact that he's talking to many when we had announced 4. And yeah, we announced 1 more, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see 6 or 7 knowing Shibtoshi, just saying.
And well, just before we conclude and wrap this up, I know it is quite late and quite early for users right now in the continent of Americas and Europe. And perhaps too late for users in Asia. But so perhaps users are unable to speak right now. But one thing we always do is get reactions and answers from the community by using the reacts on Spaces. So based on today's Spaces and our topic of centralized exchanges and education, if you are, I'm going to ask a couple questions, and all you got to use is a thumbs up or a thumbs down react button. So if you are a fan or a supporter, or I would just say even a user of a centralized exchange, put a thumbs up, use the thumbs up react, and let's see how many users we got using centralized exchanges.
Quite a few there.
Yeah, quite a few. And I'm not surprised, as we don't truly have any solution for, on-ramp and off-ramp just yet. So I think that's one key reason that people are still, using centralized exchanges. And now, if you are a true DeFi lover, loyalist, you do not want to touch central exchange at no cost, any cost, throw up a heart emoji, a heart to react, and they'll say you are true DeFi at heart.
We got a lot less of those, I noticed, but there are some hearts being thrown up. I think that's, the story of crypto is that privacy is what created it, right? Having access to control. And so, I'm getting some echo. 1 minute. Can you hear me, Sam?
Yeah, clear.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we all want privacy. We all want that. That's what crypto offers. But at the end of the day, it's still a young industry, and to bridge the gap between fiat and banks, there is a need for centralized exchanges. And the reality is centralized exchanges offer a suite of tools that make things more convenient than if you just interact directly with the blockchain. The tech in DeFi is evolving very quickly. It's getting better by the day across the board. There are better and more easy things to use there. But at the end of the day, you're still interacting with a blockchain. So for instance, if you're interacting with any of those utilities with something like Ethereum that's kind of slower and sluggish, the centralized exchange is always going to have the edge there. So there's always going to be that element of convenience and usability that an exchange can provide, a centralized exchange in particular. So I think there will always going to be there, and there are always going to be people that just want to do things by the book. So the traditional finance world is going to be coming into crypto heavy this coming bull cycle, probably bigger than we've ever seen. But at the same time, the DeFi industry, for the first time ever, has thrived during a bear market. In 2018, 2019, there was almost none. It was just being born. There was no communities. There was no hangout sessions like this. It was lone wolf forums, a couple chat rooms here and there, every man for himself. But this market, this bear market in particular, has been far different thanks to DeFi. I mean, just imagine how many people are just in the NFT sector still that are still here because of NFTs. There's a ton just in that sector, not to mention things like gaming and AI and startups and meme tokens that have existed and been born out of DeFi and out of the ability to use the blockchain and interact with the blockchain in a much easier manner than if you just interact directly with Solidity on a BSC scan or Etherscan, which is no fun. So I think because of the technology in DeFi expanding rather quickly, you're going to continue to see tons of growth there too. As experienced traders and people in centralized exchanges get bored of that and want to do them to something else and maybe catch some projects at an earlier stage, they're going to have their first DeFi experiences, just like we did at one point. And so you're going to see both sectors grow, but it is important to understand that the centralized exchange sector, regardless of your thoughts on it, is here to stay. And it plays a very important role in the success of projects being able to reach investors around the world by making sure it's accessible on the right areas. And part of that is getting listed on exchanges in the right areas and getting the volume necessary to go on bigger ones.
And that we couldn't have had a better conclusion than this. On that, actually, I mean, that just really summed it all up for, those listening and for what we talked about today over the last 2 hours. I think we are good to wrap up, Dane, so I'll hand it over to you. And just I'll take this moment to thank everybody for being an awesome audience and for, listening in and, making the time to listen to us all the time. Me and Dane certainly end up sometimes going on a rant. But thank you once again, SquidGrow family. Let's fucking grow. Over to Dane.
Let's fucking grow, baby. That's right. Hey, we appreciate all of you listening. And we've got some exciting things ahead for SquidGrow. So if you're just finding us, be sure to check us out on our Telegram. You will always find our community active and hanging out there. So if you have any questions, it's the best place to make contact with other investors and our team directly. And on top of that, you'll be hearing from Shintoshi and RDub and the rest of the core team very soon as well as we start to announce these things, which won't be long. You're going to be hearing from the guys themselves as opposed to just Sam and I. So I'm looking forward to being a listener to myself and seeing these bombs and carrots revealed. We're right around the corner, guys. So just like me, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to drop these. I know there's a lot of excitement out there. It's a beautiful thing to see back in our community. So congrats to the SquidGrow community for sticking it out through this ugly bear market. I think things are starting to turn around for us for the better, and this is only a small preview of what's to come in the future. Even with all these things we have announced right now, it's nothing in comparison to what we'll be doing in the future as things heat up even more. So thanks again, guys, and we will catch you next time. Let's fucking grow.
Let's fucking grow.